Now, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, Brian Neiman, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on the Morning Majority. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman. Mary Catherine Ham is on her honeymoon, delayed honeymoon. She's climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. We're joined by Karen Henready today to fill in for Mary Catherine. And we also have on the line someone that I'm pretty sure never has the desire to climb Mount Kilimanjaro for any purpose at any time. Ann Coulter, syndicated columnist, a Republican commentator of note. How are you, Ann?
Fine, thank you. I'm glad you know me that well.
I think that's one thing I probably know about you. And, okay, I want to start out with something that the president said at the big APEC summit meeting going on in Honolulu right now. He says, look, we finally know the answer. What's wrong with America? He says we're just lazy.
Well, we've been a little bit lazy, I think, over the last couple of decades. We've kind of taken for granted, well, people will want to come here, and we aren't out there hungry selling America and trying to attract new businesses into America.
Ann Coulter, you have the floor.
Oh, wow, the arrogance of that. I mean, particularly, it'd be one thing just to say it at any old time, but when people are so frustrated, when they're trying so hard and the jobs aren't there because liberals have made it so expensive to hire an American and so easy to send the business overseas, and there are so many regulations with Obamacare barreling down the tracks. I mean, anyone who knows businessmen, I run into them all the time. Some of them are my friends. They can't hire. They're terrified of Obamacare. Restaurant owners, small store owners. Every time you run into someone with a job, they will, within 5 minutes, start complaining about some oppressive government regulation. I had a contractor who didn't even particularly know me well, and he started railing about workman's compensation and how he figured out he could pay every one of his guys full insurance for the guy and his family for injuries on the job or off the job for what it cost him to pay into workman's compensation. So you have Americans being utterly frustrated in their very strong desire to work by the government and heavily by this big government, big regulation president, and he turns around and calls them lazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's hard to imagine how we couldn't possibly beat him next year, given, this horrible state of the economy. And yet here we are with, about a third of Republican primary voters not sure who they support. And it looks like it's shaping into a two-man race, or at least that's, how conventional wisdom is shaping up, a two-man race between Romney and Newt. So Ann Coulter, Ann Coulter, a two-man race between Romney and Newt. Can you, what do you think about that?
This. I mean, everyone knows it's going to be Romney. I understand the frustration of feeling like this is 1980. We've just had 4 years of Jimmy Carter, but worse. And if we had Ronald Reagan running, he could definitely win. Alas, Ronald Reagan is not running, and I'm getting a little tired of these born-again conservative purists. Where were they when John McCain was filling up the Republican nomination? Romney is a million times better than John McCain. And he'll do the single most important thing we need a Republican president to do, and that's to repeal Obamacare. I mean, surely conservatives are not insane enough to think he's going to double-cross us on that. And every debate, he keeps saying, first day in office, I'll issue a 50-state waiver. He says Obamacare is completely different from Romney Care. Whether or not you believe that, we have his word. He's repealing Obamacare. And I understand why the media wants to be pushing Newt Gingrich now. Two-time divorcee, and despite what the media keeps telling us about how Americans love blended families and we're totally comfortable with divorce now, there's only been one divorced president in American history, and that was Ronald Reagan, whose wife left him 30 years earlier. He wasn't having an affair in the middle of impeachment. I mean, that's like Abraham Lincoln in the middle of the Civil War. There's an important battle movement. Sorry, I'm having an affair with my secretary. No, this Gingrich, and that's not what the polls say anyway. I noticed this Friday, and I happen to have looked up the polls that day. There are about 5 daily tracking polls, and it was Romney, Kane in every one of them. Newt was third in most of them. He was fourth after Ron Paul in one of them. They are just trying to keep Republicans fighting for another 4 months, so they get a 4-month head start.
So you've made your peace with Romney. And do you think if he wins the nomination that the conservatives, the purist, as you say, will get behind him and support him when he goes head-to-head against Obama?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's against Obama. For Pete's sake, when McCain was running, I started a website, Get Drunk and Vote for McCain.
So you're saying we can vote for Romney sober? Is that what?
No, Romney is a million times better than McCain. For one thing, I mean, he's going to be the first Republican presidential candidate who can talk since Ronald Reagan. He can put two sentences together. This is an all new thing for us, and that's going to be fun. He's going to be great in the debates. He didn't call waterboarding torture. He was not a fanatical advocate of amnesty for illegals. He didn't pass campaign finance reform limiting free speech about elections. McCain was the nominee, and I didn't hear this much kvetching.
All right, so all that aside for a moment, let's talk about the travails of one Herman Cain of late. What do you make of all of these charges and his denials so far?
Well, I don't think there are all these charges. There is one charge from one named female, and within 24 hours, she was picked apart. The one with 2 bankruptcies. Her friends call her a gold digger. She's, constantly running from the law, very litigious, and happens to have lived in David Axelrod's building. And the second one, which is relevant for reasons I mentioned and will elaborate on if you would like, and the other one is Karen Kraushaar. She says, yes, I filed sexual harassment charges in the 90s. It was a hostile environment claim. We know that from Politico and that it was inappropriate language. But she won't tell us what the inappropriate language was. So we have 2 accusers and 1 claim, and the rest of it is worth nothing, as we see from the first 2 accusers. As I mentioned, the Sharon Bialik, and I forgot the single most credibility-promoting aspect of her claim. She was standing at the mic with Gloria Allred, her lawyer, and we find out about Karen Kraushaar that her very next job, she moves to her next job, and whoa, she's subjected to sexual harassment again. Come on!
Putting that aside, Herman Cain, do you, with the flip-flop that he's kind of had to clarify or recalibrate some of the things he said in the time, is he ready for prime time?
Well, I did not think so before. I mean, he's ready for prime time. Is he ready to be the presidential candidate?
Okay.
That's a big step. He'd made some other mistakes that when you went back and you saw what he had actually said, I mean, like on abortion, that's up to the family, and then you see, if you look at the question, well, he really was being asked about abortion in the case of rape and incest. And the Chinese nukes, he really was being asked about nukes on submarines. But yet and still, I mean, I just think as a general matter, you have to run for president in an important election, perhaps the most important of our lifetimes, and I know we always say that, but it really is now, because if we don't get a Republican in, Obamacare is here to stay forever. If we get a Republican in, it's going to be repealed. That being the case, I mean, I think he's fantastic and possibly could be a vice presidential nominee. I know he said he wouldn't take it, but I never believe that until it's offered. A position in the cabinet, perhaps he could be the White House advisor in charge of transitioning to a 999 tax plan. And he should have a prominent role at the convention, which is why Republicans have got to dig in. And I noticed the media has kind of gone silent on giving us any more information about Herman Cain's accusers, probably because of the belly flop of the first 2.
It's kind of died down,
Or 1.5. So conservatives, this means they've done their research and they're not liking what they're finding. So this is the time to go wild and demand more information and find out all you can about these accusers, because this is outrageous. He's got to be completely defended.
All right, and good to talk to you. You're going to be at the Press Club tomorrow about 5:30 signing books with a lot of other people out there. So we look forward to seeing you.
Yes.